A lot of times parents say, why can't my kid just stop?
I think initially, like in high school for me, it was so hard to stop because of the benefits I was getting from use. I wasn't starting to have the consequences, right? I was starting to be like, okay, I'm a huge nerd. I'm in Mathletes and Science Olympia, but now I drink vodka, so I'm hanging out with the cool kids. And I finally have like a lot of friends. So like, I think that's another reason my mom didn't intervene as quickly. But she's like, okay, now he's social. Now all these things she's been pushing me to do before, instead of like video games and studying, I'm doing with the help of vodka.
I would say in the early stages, like especially in high school, like it, became like who I was. That was my identity, was the cool kid who, drank and, smoked pot and stuff like that. And then as I, went deeper into my addictions, like it just became me being physically dependent upon it, and not even being a question that I'm going to continue to use, because if not, I'm going to be sick and I'm going to, be suicidal sometimes. But yeah, I think it all comes back to, it was just like, felt like it was engraved like in my DNA, like this is what I do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like without a doubt, like all of my heroes during that time period when I had first started using and drinking, like that was their thing. I was really into like beatnik poetry and stuff.
And Jack Kerouac.
Yeah. And I just was like, I got to be like these guys. Like that's my goal in life. And so that quickly just became my identity, was romanticizing drinking, romanticizing dysfunction, and like just living that to be that. And then at a certain point, it became, without a doubt, like how I coped with reality. Reality without substances was not, it was like not having my skin on my body. It was just incredibly uncomfortable to do anything with anyone if I wasn't under the influence of a substance.
For me, I got an identity. As Gabriel said, like I, idolized these people that were, drug users, had died young from using drugs or et cetera, partied hard. And I got an identity from it. I got, friends to a certain extent, and not a bunch of my friends were using drugs the way I was, but they were using drugs. And then I, became physically dependent, and I had an appearance to keep up. And I knew that, the world that I was working in, to get clean meant I had to go to detox. I had to go to rehab, and I didn't have time for that.
Who has time for rehab?
Yeah. I used to say it all the time. I would drive around with this kid to pick up dope, and I'd be like, I really need to get clean, but like, I can't take a month off work. Like, that's just not realistic.
What about co-occurring disorders? In other words, you know what they are, what used to be called dual diagnosis, having depression and substance use disorder. I have that, and I don't know which one came first.
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand with one another.
I do too.
I think the quickest fix to, being depressed or anxious is to, use substances. That's at least the case for me.
So for me, I have, generalized anxiety and recurring depression. My active use was based around one of my co-occurring disorders was over-medicating with ADHD medications like Adderall and Vyvanse. And so for me, like today, like those solutions aren't really an option anymore. And it's still like in sobriety, it's much more manageable than it was before sobriety.
I think so many people, and certainly myself, get started using substances because of the co-occurring disorder. So I was depressed, and then I thought drinking and smoking pot would help with that. So I think parents, certainly, if they notice signs of that, it's another preventative thing. They can address the underlying condition before the child needs to use illegal substances. Maybe they can get medicated from a psychiatrist rather than playing doctor themselves.
What about trauma? Trauma is a very big part of addiction.
I know for me personally, I didn't have any like huge traumatic experiences, but I think a lot of little things did stick with me. And I know they say in the treatment world, like there's the big T's and the little T's, but they still can affect you the same way.
Yeah, I think that I had a big trauma when I was like 16, a big T, but I just saw it as a part of life. And, not until after like looking at it and kind of diving into it did I realize that was trauma, and it did affect me.
Watching my father's alcoholism and addiction was without a doubt like a huge traumatic piece of like my development. And I did trauma work before I found recovery. I had the gift of seeing like really good therapists and going to really good workshops. And that stuff was helpful. And then at the same time, like trying to resolve trauma while still in active use or just starting out, it's not going to have the same effect as somebody that's in recovery and is resolving it.
Neglect is maybe one of the biggest traumas that a child can go through. And I certainly dealt with that for my dad, looking up to my father and then having him never there to be a dad. So I would tell parents, like, a lot of what you do can prevent things like that from happening. And trauma is something that stays with the child, can stay with people for a lifetime.